Hello and welcome to part two of the strategies, the 5 strategies I wish I had so much earlier as a working mom. It's part two. It's on relationships, how to evolve your relationships after you have kids, when you become a working mom, even if you are still on maternity leave. And let me tell you, I was stuck in overwhelm before I had these strategies. I had nobody who was really validating who I was after motherhood in the deep way that I like to do with you, people who watch what we do here at Pros and Babes. Again, an introduction. My name is Kenya Romanovska. I'm a mom of two, and I've been operating Pros and Babes since 2017. We're a media and education company specialized in helping STEM and STEAM moms, leaders, creators, design a more mother and family friendly infrastructure for the future. And it starts with an inside job. I'll give you a couple of examples of what I mean by all of that. So, in the last few years, as I've had the privilege of working with hundreds of moms from various careers, I realized, like many of you, that the world is not built for us working moms to succeed. And for a long time, I wrestled with the feeling of victimhood where I just felt unappreciated, unseen, misunderstood as a working mom. And I discovered that I wasn't the only one with these feelings. And the more, my trade is journalism and communication. So for a good part of my career, I did lots of research, poured through many documents. And when I launched Pros and Babes, when I had my first son during my first maternity leave, I created a huge vault of information about what it is to be a working mom in Canada and abroad. And I discovered the term the motherhood penalty, the financial, emotional, mental, career consequences of having children. And we just, in this stage of history, we have so much opportunity as women, but many of us feel more isolated and burnt out than ever. So, some of my clients in the Mom BA community have been working with me for a number of years now, 3, going even on 4. And the stages of our journey are first getting out of overwhelm. Most mothers who come to work on those pillars that I'm talking about come in with some sort of level of anxiety or overwhelm, or at least wanting to optimize something. So we do a lot of work on mindset and getting clarity on what really matters to you when you become a mother. So many people have opinions about what you should be doing, when you should return to work, how long you should or shouldn't take off work, whether you should work at all. Everything changes in your life. So we spend quite a bit of time getting thorough clarity on the 12 pillars. Now in this workshop, I talk about 5 key pillars, but there are really 12, 13 pillars in life that I want you to get clarity in as a working mom. And relationships, excuse me, is the second most important one after mindset, which is why it's part 2 of this training series. So we work on mindset. And once there's enough clarity there about what you want in life, about your relationship with time, we really want to get out of this, like there's never enough time in a day, to creating more spaciousness and much better time and energy management in the long term. So you find more satisfaction as a working mom. We then migrate into more of a feminine energy. Most of us operate in very masculine worlds, logical, linear, goal focused, but motherhood is anything but. There's a lot of chaos, there's a lot of uncertainty, unpredictability. And so if we spend too much time in this feeling of logic, goal setting, we tend to burn out and we tend to limit our satisfaction in life. We are feeling creatures, we are creatures of desires. And most mothers find it very helpful to get back into that space where they can tune in to what they really desire and want to feel. It's a beautiful complement to our logical side. Finally, as I continue the work, I get into a more spiritual realm. I think we all yearn for a deeper meaning, a connection with the people who lived before us and what we are leaving as a legacy. When we become parents, we realize that we are not going to be here forever, and our choices and how we raise them is going to leave the world for the next generation for them. And when I talk about designing a more mother and family friendly world, it's been really fun with engineers that I've been working with for 3 years now to design a village built by moms and for moms to thrive and families to thrive. And we dare to dream big and think about how would we design society and the world if we were the bosses, if we did the architectural blueprints, the engineering blueprints. If we designed the policies, the schools, how much would we work? How much time off would we have? All of that. So, you know, I see that I can empower parents and mothers to think more creatively about how they can solve the problems we are facing in this generation by thinking about infrastructure. But the beginning of that is with an inside job. It takes time to change policies, to change mindsets. Articles I'm reading right now as I'm recording this video are showing that lots of large employers are trying to even ban work from home, and it breaks my heart because I know that for mothers who want to have a career, this can be what allows them to stay and thrive in their careers versus not be able to blend everything together. So this was a bit of a longer introduction about our topic, about what I do, but I help STEM and STEAM parents do the inside job that's required for more life satisfaction as a working parent, and that ultimately they can align their desires for the future with their profession and how they show up at work and how they show up in their homes. So today the module we are exploring is relationships, how to evolve your relationships after having kids. I'm going to share my screen and show you that I have a worksheet. If you're watching this live or on YouTube at this point, you can request a worksheet from me. If you've registered for this course at a different time, the worksheet might be attached to like your portal and module, right? So I will share my screen and show you that there's a 3-page worksheet that can be attached to this workshop. What we want to do is recognize the key relationships in your life, depending on the stage you're in, because you're going to evolve so much as you become a new working parent, or wherever you are. Maybe you have teenagers, you still need, you have key relationships in your life that you have to prioritize. We need to understand your new feelings as a mother. And again, whether you are giving birth to your first child, your third child, or you are a new mother to teenagers, we need to acknowledge them and how they affect the relationships around you. And finally, we will reflect on how to create and maintain a healthy, nurturing relationship as a new parent. And here, when I say a relationship, often I mean with a partner. I recognize that not everybody has a partner with your parenting situation, but certainly it is a relationship that is often present. So even if you are not with a partner, perhaps there is a co-parent or somebody who is raising kids with you on some level. So you can think about that too. None of us live in isolation. There's typically other humans that really impact how our kids are raised. So the first step, I will summarize everything at the end, and there's going to be a summary post about this that goes on my social media. But this may seem like something really easy to say, that it's no surprise that having a group of supportive friends is crucial to a woman's happiness and health, especially when you're a new mom. Up to 80% of women experience some form of the baby blues. That's a very big amount, right? And especially with this being recorded during Mental Health Awareness Week, many of us feel alone and isolated. I've seen so many women going through anxiety, depression, OCD, postpartum mood disorders after having kids. So it's so important. Research shows that forging friendships with other new moms can make the transition into parenthood easier to handle. It's very important for women to join with other new moms to get a sense that they are not alone in their questions, insecurities, and uncertainties. And there's something very important that happens at this stage of your life for you and for your partner. If we're looking at, I'm going to use the term matrescence and putrescence. They're the physical, psychological, and emotional changes you go through after the birth of your child. And they have a name, matrescence. Same thing for putrescence. Just as new parenthood is a profound transition for mothers, the same is true for their partners. Even though they haven't gone through pregnancy and childbirth, their lives are now likely being disrupted in similar ways. Less sleep, less downtime, more responsibility, and more financial pressure. Hormonal changes in father during their partner's pregnancy and postpartum includes a decrease in testosterone and an increase in vasopressin, estrogen, prolactin, oxytocin, and cortisol. So there's changes that can happen for fathers as well when a new child comes into the picture. And I've noticed that so many parents feel much more honored and seen when they acknowledge this major life transition. We know about adolescence and puberty, we talk about it. We know that there's a huge change that goes there, it goes on there. But often with a new mom, we expect her to simply be happy after she's had a new child because what a blessing and what a gift. And yet, many women feel very strange after having a child. And if you have older children and that's never been honored or acknowledged with you, perhaps hearing this for the first time can really help you understand what you were going through at that time. Another element that I really want you to understand, and I'll revisit in a little bit more detail, is perpetual conflict. This was an absolute game changer for me and my husband. It's based on the Gottman's Institute's research that shows that 69% of relationship conflict is about perpetual problems. All couples have them. These problems are grounded in the fundamental differences that any two people face. They are either fundamental differences in your personalities that repeatedly create conflict or fundamental differences in your lifestyle needs. Research has shown that instead of solving your perpetual problems, what seems to be important is whether or not a couple can establish a dialogue about them. If a couple cannot establish such a dialogue, the conflict becomes gridlocked, and gridlocked conflict eventually leads to emotional disengagement. When I discovered this concept, the Gottman Institute has such excellent research and lots of tools that I like to work through in the Mombi community and the Pros and Babes community. I realized, and you might see an email from me on this topic, that that it changed my relationship with my husband to understand what perpetual conflict is. I used to get very upset about being the planner in our family, the organizer. Every year in May, for was it about 2 years, I've designed the system. I map out, I print, like I have them on my wall. I print 12 months worth of calendars starting in September. I always advise moms who want to restructure their time schedule to start at a later date and not try to make a schedule for tomorrow, because it can be an abrupt change. And in about 90 days, our schedules typically are not fully filled. We haven't signed up for a bunch of activities. So you can redesign your calendar for the future and systems to prevent overscheduling yourself. And so I'm the planner in our family. Big picture, like long-term vision, medium term, shorter term, year long. I'm the one driving those conversations and putting in systems and planning. And I really, really wanted for my husband to take that initiative. And I pushed for it for many years. And we talked about it. And it didn't bring tons of change. And I was frustrated. But ultimately, we both sought some help personally and as a couple, and I learned to understand my husband's brain so much better. I think on some level, I'm not an expert on neurodiversity, but I know that I'm not 100% neurotypical. That's come up for me. I'm a really fast thinker. I'm very intellectual. Sometimes I struggle to connect with people in an emotional way because of that. And my husband tends to be forgetful. I mean, could there be a formal diagnosis associated with that? To some extent, yes, but we decided that really we want to focus on what systems can be put in place for him over time to manage some of this forgetfulness that is not malicious. It's just how I understand his brain works, and how I've learned when we did some assessments, he's developed lots of skills to be organized in certain spheres of his life, and in the home life, it simply is difficult and taxing. And so I shifted my perspective from focusing on the upset I had about being the planner in the family. I think many of you can relate to that. I shifted my perspective on trying to focus on the things that he does extremely well. So he's quite excellent in the day-to-day implementation. I like variety. I get bored quite a bit, quite easily. I like change. And so I can design these plans, but sometimes if I don't build enough variety, I actually get bored of the implementation. Whereas my husband is really good and patient and consistent with the day-to-day implementation of the emotional support for the family, of some of the things he does with the kids. And I've just tried to stop being so upset. Of course, I'm still frustrated about the overall structure and mentality in our culture and society, that women are doing most of the planning and the organizing, and so much of that mental, emotional, and domestic labor is unseen and unpaid. But I've tried to shift my perspective in the short term so that it doesn't sap so much of my emotional energy. And with this community and with my clients, we continue showing up for ourselves and seeing how can we evolve that, and how can we continue having conversations with our partners so that things feel more fair. There's excellent books called Fair Play and Drop the Ball that can help you reflect on that. So that is for the relationship. I mean, I'll tell you a little bit more. Like, I remember when the pandemic hit, my husband and I, what we did is we sat down, we wrote down, there was so much uncertainty, and we wrote down what our strengths were, what our values were, how we would decide to make decisions, what's our shared vision, what really matters to us. And that really helped us through the difficult initial stages of the pandemic, and then the other stages, because we decided to focus more on the strengths we brought to the table instead of constantly arguing about the things that were a perpetual conflict. So knowing your values, focusing on your strength, having a shared vision, and I will add a little bit later, also honoring your anger. It's okay to be angry about all of this. It's very normal. It's sacred. It's not easy, and sometimes it can get frustrating to feel like you're the one who's pushing this work in your home. There's a book about passing the torch and passing on wealth between generations that I really liked, that ask who should be responsible for visioning in a family, and they say the person who's most called to. And it sounds like in my group of clients, a lot of us women are feeling called to do some visioning, and in a way that gives me hope, because that allows us also to set the tone for the future and for our families and kids to evolve. So we talked about first we talked about the importance of other moms who know you. Here at Pros and Babes, we're really at the intersection of career and family. And when women come and hang out with us and decide to stay and ultimately join the community, is because they feel really seen, both as professionals and as mothers. And because we have such a focus on STEM and STEAM careers, so science, technology, engineering, and with the A stands for arts, academia, right, and mathematics. So a lot of these demanding professions, it feels refreshing to be in a place where you feel seen as a mother, and also as somebody who has technical knowledge, extreme expertise in a very demanding field, and being able to find solutions with people like that. So we talked about the importance of those relationships, honoring matrescence and putrescence, perpetual conflict. Setting boundaries is my next one. So this is a tricky one. I've been reading about it for years. It's not easy to do gracefully, and I can't say I'm the expert at doing it with the most class, if I can say it. I think we've all been boundarized in ways that don't feel good and that leave a really sour taste in our mouths, right? So I think we can evolve in terms of how we set boundaries to also really nurture those relationships. But essentially, there's something by Stephanie Liu, so Dr. Stephanie Liu, Life of Dr. Mom. She says, relationships with difficult or needy family members, like a small child, can be hard, and it can take a lot of patience and persistence to navigate. If you stick to your guns over time, the behavior will likely reduce. If you slip up on your consequence and do not follow through, it may worsen the behavior. Whenever you are challenging the status quo, you are likely to stir up a lot or little of emotion. You might feel guilty, but at the end of the day, you have the right to be treated with respect. And what really helps with boundary setting is that clarity on what really matters to you. Becoming a new mom or a working mom or navigating a big change in your kids' lives, like the teenage period, can be very difficult and can challenge your values. And when you have that clarity on your values and your vision for the future, then you can integrate it into how you plan your schedule for the year. You can become a lot more proactive in pre-setting those boundaries before they are actually breached. So I want to reinforce with the concepts of matrescence and putrescence how parenting is the greatest identity shift adults face. The arrival of parenthood is bound up with identity shifts at the deepest level. Personal freedom gives way to responsibility. Self-love gives way to other love. Traditionally, for men particularly, and this is from The Guardian from the UK, the archaic but still active idea of the heroic, ego-driven, priapic swashbuckler gives way to the mundane domestic breadwinner and part-time skivvy. For many women, it's similar. The career and self are put on hold. Only for them, the skivvying often becomes full-time. A parent of any race or gender may find their sense of self disappear under a tsunami of child-rearing tasks. So as much as possible, honor this identity shift. And when I work with moms, I encourage them to plan time alone. Often there's resistance, so we start by an hour or two, sometimes one day, sometimes a night away, and systematizing retreats, time away from your regular routine is so critical. I recognize that this is not something that feels accessible to many of you, but that's why I say plan it 3, 6, 9 months in advance if you need to give you time to work out the childcare or to adjust psychologically to the change. I retreat regularly. I create retreats for my clients. We go to a mountain spa once a year, and sometimes we do some glamping retreats. And women like you find a way to prioritize this financially. They find a way to discuss this with their partners, but it takes time. We often plan these retreats 6 months, even a year in advance. And then it's something that women look forward to. So you need those spaces to honor those identity shifts. It is a very hard transition, one where you're often just expected to be happy, and the dark emotions, the unpleasant emotions, I'm not going to say the bad emotions, but anger, sadness, anxiety, depression are where we can be ashamed of accepting that we have them and honoring those feelings. But a group of supportive other women who understand you and who have been through what you've gone through can be great at that time. So to recap, number one, connect with other working moms who have similar values and who understand your struggles. There's nothing like being seen by moms who get you, who understand the sleep deprivation, who understand all the mixed feelings we have about returning to work or continuing to have a full-time career after kids, right? That's why I've created this community, so that no working mom feels alone with her challenges. And also, I welcome you as a whole person. Your life is not just about work and family. It has many pillars: your mindset, your relationships, your career skills, your finances, right? Your health, your personal brand, what career life integration looks like for you, leadership, your spiritual life, how you integrate everything. That is you bring the whole person to parenting. And so we need to get clarity on all aspects of your life so that you can feel seen and understood and whole. Acknowledge, celebrate matrescence and patrescence, the huge transformation you've been through. Understand perpetual conflict with your partner and consider humor to accept it. That's really helped us. The spoiler, I'm not the one with the best sense of humor in our relationship, but my husband makes me laugh every single day. And recognizing that there's some things that are not going to change in our relationship has been a relief, instead of always fighting about it. Of course, we don't completely sit on our laurels and just completely capitulate. Both my husband and I are making efforts to constantly work on ourselves. I believe in therapy. I believe in couples therapy, and we both embrace it as much as time allows. And we just understand that it's important to grow and shift and at least understand each other better. If we feel like we can't fully change in every aspect of life that might cause friction, at least understanding and compassion helps. And then over time, aligning our schedule with our disposition really helps. Learn to set boundaries with grace. I will be honest with you. I am not the super expert on the grace part. I'm still working on it. I go back to it. I read experts who do it. I think there's some testing that needs to happen there, but the boundaries do need to happen. And the more seamlessly you can do it, I think the less your relationships will suffer. Less will suffer. Number 5, be clear on your values, your partner's values, and define how you want to feel in your relationship. That's a question I love to ask. How do you want to feel? Respected, peaceful, unrushed, loved, loving? Focus on what you can control. I can't control my husband's brain. I don't want to control him. I can only control my reactions, how I communicate, how I prioritize or deprioritize certain things, right? And I can ask for support and help and recalibrate in time. But I also say honor your anger. I had a significant moment of anger this morning about a personal situation that's also related to society's expectations, and I don't want for us to pretend that you can shift everything by just being positive. I think that life for working moms is a lot more complicated and at the intersection of so many of our experiences with our health, with our bodies, with our relationships with the office, that honoring the anger, the sacred rage, as some would call it, is important. There's space for that. And I think it's important to teach our kids that anger can be felt, right? Design fair play systems in your household. I know. Like, why me? Why me? It's often women driving this conversation. So there's a book called Fair Play, and then there's a book called Drop the Ball that will help you realize that maybe you are doing some gatekeeping that's preventing your partner from stepping in fully. When I was pregnant with my second son, I had to travel to a funeral for 3 weeks, and my husband and my older son did just fine. He was about a year and a half. And it's so good for a partner, if that's your situation, of course, to spend time with your child. And if you don't have a partner, I would strongly encourage you to plant seeds or a prayer so that you can find a village where you can also spend time away by yourself and honor your needs and yourself. There's also designing a project management spreadsheet for emotional, mental, and domestic labor. So we've designed one in our community, and we've made a list of practically every single task that happens in a family. And some of these tasks can move into a does not need to get done list. There are many things that are expected from us, from schools, from associations, that just pile up, and we don't need to say yes to absolutely everything. So some things absolutely need to move to the does not get done list, right? Have regular planning dates with your partner. When you start getting sleep, when you're open to that, my clients who do the best in their relationships ultimately make time to discuss and plan these issues with their partners. And sometimes you have to wait until your kids get a little bit older. You might have to get babysitting. You might have to plan it in advance, but you need space for your relationship to thrive and flourish. And finally, if you found this training helpful, please share it with your professional associations, your STEM associations, your networks. Community helps create change faster. The more people who engage in this type of intentional work, the more we can evolve faster and change a world that ultimately wasn't designed for us to thrive. I'm not saying this pointing fingers. I think as humanity, we are evolving, but I think we can do so much better for ourselves, our children, and the next generation of working women. We have so much to be grateful for, so much more opportunity, so much more freedom. And at the same time, we feel so much isolation, loneliness, and burnout. And I would like to help us evolve from that into, happier states, into more peaceful states, more unrushed states, and spaces where we feel like the work we're doing at home and the work we are doing in the office aligns with building a better future. That type of alignment can help us get through moments that are really difficult, give us a sense of purpose, show up for our kids in a way that's inspired and helps them understand why we do what we do, why we work outside of the home. And yes, so out of the 12 pillars that I cover in my Mom Be training, I've decided to give you a glimpse into 5 of those that are so critical. Mindset, which I covered in part 1. Relationships, which we covered today in part 2. There's also career skills and finances. That's part 3. Support systems and a long-term vision. I hope you are enjoying this time. If you would like the worksheet, please let me know. And always hit reply wherever this is posted for you. I love to hear your comments, your key takeaways, and how this has helped create a shift for you in your life. Thanks, and talk to you next time.